Hey, welcome to another episode of Doujin Drops. I am Jay, and I'm joined by my co-host T.
Hello there.
And today we're pretty much gonna have our first, you should say, serious debate out in this podcast. Today, we're gonna be talking about the piracy issue going on in the, let's say, the fan-made Doujin community.
Captain Jack Sparrow, basically.
Yeah, so this issue first came about when I was on my Twitter, and I actually follow like a lot of Japanese artists. Like a lot of them actually self-publish or publish real doujins, like fan-made, like hentai or just regular original content when it comes to this type of stuff.
And disclaimer, everyone, that me and Jay, we don't use Twitter to like follow anything serious. It's mainly just like artists and lewds and degenerate shit. So keep that in mind.
Right. And eventually I stumbled across this one artist that recently published a I guess you could say a doujin, like original content. And mind you, we're mostly focusing on the hentai side of things. I know there's like the regular manga, but they're not really doujins, since they're, I believe doujin is fan-made. That's what the word means. So let's also clear that up. Because, the creator of My Hero Academia, sure, it's still something he made, but it's not fan-made. It's more of a no-seat type of thing. So this artist...
That, and he's backed up by a company too, so he has that to fall back on.
Oh yeah. They have publishers, and well, I finally, like I said, once again, we follow a bunch of like doujin artists on Twitter, and finally I stumbled upon one that just pretty much said he was sad that most people out in the West pirate, or illegally download or illegally read their content. And I'm one for supporting artists. I'm not also, let's say, advertising that people should pirate their content. But his argument I felt was kind of weak. So essentially, it's not really the artist's problem. It's more like the industry in general.
Mm-hmm.
So the point one that he made was that he felt really, really sad that people were illegally reading his stuff, but there's no way out here in America to officially read his stuff, because there's only one legal way to read hentai out here in America, and that's through Faku.
Yeah, they're
Faku. But Faku has their partners in Japan. I think they only translate and officially, bring their stuff to the market. They don't necessarily work with individual artists. They have their own partners.
Well, I think they choose whoever they choose, right? Even if they're individual artists, I think Faku chooses who to bring into the company, or what artists to work with, because you know how the amateur doujinshi artists, right? The hentai doujinshi artists and the other ones, right? I guess they want to get into the Faku business, but they can't, or they don't want to. But at the end of the day, there isn't really any way to legitly read, just legally read the their hentai manga.
100%.
Because if you think about it, Jay, yes, say for instance, let's think of an example here. Let's think of an example here in terms of the hentai artists. Okay, imagine the hentai artist. No, that's bad. Methonium has some other works that's published already. Okay, imagine this. Pretend Boshi, the hentai artist, right? Pretend he is not on Faku. Okay, but let's just hypothetically pretend he's not on Faku. He has a following though. But however, he a lot of his fans are in the U.S. or in the West, right? In conjunction with the people in Japan. But the bad part is that he hasn't translated any of his works. And the way that we're reading it is through fan translations, which of course are great and all, but they're not necessarily I guess
Legal.
like league like 100% legal, even though like they're not necessarily doing anything like completely wrong, but even though they're still translating it right, and we're reading it. However, reading on these like whack ass like hentai sites, right, that aren't necessarily supporting the artist 100%, but people like to support the artist in different ways. But at the end of the day, the artist really isn't doing anything to like get it out there from. But mind you, they're not like their works aren't very mainstream, like Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, One Piece, stuff like that. It's basically porn. It's that lewd stuff. So of course they can't bring it to the masses like that.
Yeah, and that's mainly due to the fact that here in America we have a problem with showing sexual stuff. I mean, the porn industry is doing well, but it's when it comes to like hentai and cartoons and stuff, they don't for some reason they're more strict on this type of stuff, even though it's not real and no one's getting hurt. Now, realistically, my main issue here is that Faku, outside of their partners, they don't really translate licensed content, and I can kind of see why. Because of the copyright laws here in America, they rather just not touch that stuff. But the hentai artists that do licensed content, I don't think it's kind of hard for them to bring it out here, seeing as Faku has a monopoly on this type of stuff. I mean, there's another website, I can't really remember, but yeah, I mean, that's really the issue here, is that there's really not that many ways to officially support an artist. Mind you, like, it goes back to that one raw hentai manga that I bought. I talked about it in the other episode. I had to actually go out of my way and jump through a lot of hoops and hurdles just to get this to my house. Mind you, doing all of that was very expensive, and I mean, this was only because I really, 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 really liked this one.
Yeah, and like Jay already read it, but like translated.
Right, and I mean, this was just my way to support the artist, and I mean, I even like, I guess you could say, do a monthly contribution to his Pixie fan box, just because I really like his work. Now, essentially, the only way this artist claims you can legally read his stuff is if you buy the book through a Japanese only website, and it's raw and there's no translations. So there's an issue with that. I mean, me and you were talking about this stuff before we started this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people out here in the West actually can read Japanese well?
I think there's like there's more.
I feel like they're the only, that type of audience is the only one that can actually tap into that.
Yeah. Don't quote me on this, anyone. Like, these aren't like real, like, proven professional statistics. But if you think about it, there, since it is the year 2021 and all that, there's a lot more multilingual people out there, right? And some people learn Japanese because of work or just like interest in the cultures and all that, right? And most of them can speak it, right? But reading and writing is a completely different herd of cattle, like, to begin with. And the thing is that, what if, yes, there's more people that can read and write Japanese, right? However, even if they know how to read and write Japanese, do they have any interest in just the doujinshis, like the hentai stuff, or like just the non-translated stuff in general? Like, yeah, they might have an interest in manga, but like, will they go out their way to like translate that for you, or just be part of the community?
But also do a monthly contribution for it, like, because this are like Pixit fan boxes, you pay them all in yen. You don't really pay them in US dollars, and some banks out here in America have a problem with converting currency. They might even charge you a fee for that. Yeah, so that's kind of a hurdle. And then they be advertising their works on Fanza, which is kind of like a doujin buying website. And like I said, it's all raw, it's all Japanese. It's just very, very hard to support these artists. And because it's just so hard for them, for us to support them, they end up having that surprise Pikachu face when a lot of people out here in America just,
they're like, we
illegally read them. Yeah, and I honestly feel like it's not really the artist's fault, it's just the way the industry works in general. Like, I feel like maybe if they dual publish shit, they'll have better sales out here in the West. Because as of right now, there's just no official way to support them out here in the West. Especially the Doujin artists that write licensed stuff.
Yeah.
Because let's say, for example, let's give Konosuba for an example. Let's say a Doujin artist writes a story about Konosuba. Sure, they can sell it in Japan, and they can translate. You know, they could easily find a translator in English and have them translate it. But outside of Japan, they might not be able to sell it here in America, because if they bring it over here, like maybe the studio company behind the series might be okay with it.
Yeah.
But if they come over here, the licensed partner, the people that have the license here in America to sell and distribute merchandise for that particular series, might not be okay with that. Because it goes back to what we said. People out here don't, you know, like for some reason sex is very taboo to market out here. And maybe that maybe that particular licensed partner out here in America might not be okay with advertising it, or who knows? I mean, they might have the exclusive rights.
Yeah, lots of
whether it be Sony, Crunchyroll, or Funimation, they might have exclusive rights to whatever franchise you're trying to port that Doujin, and they just might not be okay with that.
Yeah, lots of copyright laws and lots of just U.S. was it antitrust laws, right?
No, not antitrust laws. It's what do they call those? Like intellectual property laws.
Okay. But yeah, it's just lots of laws just to lots of laws to take in fact, and it's just that the apparently sex culture is different in the U.S., which is kind of weird, which is a bit whack. It's just whack in the U.S. in terms of their sex cultures. I don't truly understand it. Like part of them says yes, sex. You're like, okay, no sex. You're like, I don't. What?
Yeah, blood and gore is okay to show out here, but not boobies.
Not even boobies. It's kind of like just anything. It's just anything like in sexual nature, like sexual innuendos or anything like that, right? Sexual innuendos, okay, but like anything mildly sexy, they're like, whoa, there, hold your roll there, cowboy. We can't do that. Not around here. Around these parts, Tex. And then you're like, what?
Yeah, and it's just a different culture out here, and also a different way we do business. And it also goes back to something we talked about before the show: is some artists are just not very business savvy. They might be good at drawing, but they're really bad at doing business. I mean, I just feel awful for a lot of them that there's no legal way for them to sell their stuff out here outside of maybe a convention or I think the artist that I used as an example at the beginning of the podcast, I mean, he actually today just started a Patreon, but I feel like it's kind of weird because he mentioned before starting a Patreon that he was going to get a guy to officially translate it in English. I guess he dropped that idea because on his Patreon, like, it's good to support, and I advocate supporting any artist that you like for any story. But what I find weird is that you're giving this guy money, and he's telling you, and then literally on his Patreon, he's telling you, hey, if you want to read the translated version, just go to an illegal site. So he was complaining about his work being, illegally distributed, and people viewing it illegally, but on his Patreon, he's telling you to just view it illegally. I guess he just gave up on hiring a translator or something.
It's a bit weird because, like, I feel like if these artists have more like platforms, right, to like help them support, because like a lot of the artists here in the US or like just in the West in general, they have Patreon, Ko-Fi, they even have their
I honestly think Patreon's a really bad like Ko-Fi is better, and like Ko-Fi coffee, whatever it's called, I call it Ko-Fi.
And the thing is, like they even have a lot of the artists even have their own like merchandise store where like they sell their own merchandise where they have t-shirts or they have like keychains or just a little knickknacks with their art on it, or or their art inspired like merchandise that you can buy. You can actually legit support them, right? That's nice. But for the Japanese artists, it's like half and half. Some of them have it, some of them don't. That's the thing. And the thing is, like,
I think it's mainly due to maybe it might be a cultural thing. Don't get me wrong. You know, it might just be a cultural thing because most people out there, you know, it's like you said, they have like keychains and everything, but maybe keychains aren't so big in Japan.
I mean, they kind of are. That's kind of a...
No. I'm just giving you an example, like that. It might be a cultural difference.
No. That's not the point here. The point here is kind of like there's a barrier to overcome because, like, yes, they can have their own like merchandise and all that in Japan and sell it at conventions or like just sell it online stores, but like they're kind of just restricted to the domestic market, right? And if they want to go like international, that opens up another can of worms they have to deal with, like, you know, with currency conversion. Then after that, where can they ship it to, right? And if they can support like shipping over there, or like if they even have fans in certain parts of the world, right? You get me? Since, like, you know,
right, like it's kind of hard to publish to the mass market this type of stuff. You know, it's like you said, all of those plus the, you know, intellectual property issues.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, they're selling lewds, right? And, you know, lewds.
Yeah, I feel like that's maybe like, I don't really advocate for piracy, but I mean, when it comes to, you know, doujins, I could see why people prefer to just pirate this type of stuff. I do encourage people that if you really like something, try to support the artist the best as you can.
It's gonna suck though, going through all those hoops and hurdles just to like support them. But, like, you know, at least you're supporting them somehow. I mean, if you think about it.
I mean, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I think most Japanese doujin artists, they have a Pixiv fan box, which is pretty much like their version of Patreon. I'm just lucky enough that my bank actually allows currency conversion for free, and, you know, lets me support them. So that's pretty good. It's just, you know, some people's banks might have issues with that.
Yeah, because I know
in that case, try to find out if they have like a Patreon, or a Patreon.
Because I know you have Wells Fargo, and, like, you know, like you said, they're totally okay.
I had Wells Fargo. Now I have SoFi, and SoFi, pretty good.
No, I have Capital One, but, like, I'm not too sure like how they do that. But, like, in Jay's case, he's able to support his artists somehow, right? You know, I support my artists in different ways. You know, like trying to buy their like doujinshis too and all that. But Jay went an extra step by being, hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to buy a doujin from this guy, which at just a bottom price is just $15, right? However, going through, like, he has to go through a middleman, pay for Japanese domestic shipping, then after he has to pay for international shipping. All of that just rounds up to like around $60-ish, right? 60-70-ish bucks, right? When everything's said and done.
It was the doujin itself was like $12-13, but by the time it got here, I ended up paying around $80 just to get that thing shipped here.
Damn.
And it's a lot of hoops and hurdles, but I mean, I'm pretty happy with my purchase. I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks that the middleman took, I want to say, a good 60-70% of the revenue. Yeah. When I felt like all of that should have gone, well, most of that should have gone to the artist. Just being a middleman is, like, for me, it's kind of scummy. Like, I don't really like middlemen.
I mean, like, but they have a job to do, though. But
yeah, they have a job to do, and hey, because of those middlemen, I got my doujin. Because if they didn't exist, I probably would not be able to buy it.
Yeah. Officially.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with my purchase. It's just not 90% of people aren't willing to do that. Jump through those hoops and hurdles to support their favorite artists.
Yeah, and then after that, but then with the little options that you do have for supporting the artist, there's people won't go above and beyond for that, you know.
Yeah, and I just hate to say it, but I mean, if there's no official way for you to support your artist, then I feel like it's okay to pirate.
I mean, look,
I really don't like to advocate for piracy, but it's just sometimes there's just no options, and it sucks that a lot of these artists gets left out. But I mean, essentially, I feel like their main market isn't even they don't really prioritize the Western market at all, because we've had for decades doujins have been free out here. Hentai has been free, and people just have that concept that I'm not going to pay for something that's been free for decades. But it's like you said, somebody has to get paid.
Yeah.
the money has to go in somewhere, and I'd rather it go to the people that drew and made this stuff, rather than a translator that at the end of the day, the fan translators also make these they make the fandom go on, but I'd rather the money go to the actual artists.
Look. At the end of the day, like going on Jay's point, right, where he says that there's no official way to support them. Technically, there is, but let's word it differently here. Technically, there are official ways to support, Japanese art, like lewd artists and all that, right? The ones that are like not doing so well off or don't have a great connection. But the thing is, like, the official platforms to support them on are pretty ass. Like, they don't do a really good job of like making it easy to support them. I feel like if they want international people, right, or I guess just their domestic market to support them in an easier way, have a platform to where they can easily support their artists. Don't donate to them, and like maybe they might get something in return. Like, I mean, that's with Patreon, right? But Patreon's like very iffy. Like people have are divided on Patreon.
I've seen a lot of artists complain about Patreon not like reporting to the IRS that their tax forms or something. I don't really use it. I don't know how it works, but something about Patreon like reporting double income or some stuff like that.
No, it's more on the lines of. So, putting a Patreon aside, right? Put a Patreon aside, like, without Patreon, right, and those other big things, what other ways are there to support the artist? In terms of, like, just easily.
There's Ko-Fi, but I don't really know. I don't think it's not as popular as Patreon.
I don't think a lot of, like, artists have Ko-Fi, though, right? In terms of, like, in Japan.
Well, there was this one artist that fucked me over that had a Ko-Fi. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna get too much into detail with that. Maybe in another episode, but... He had a Ko-Fi, because, Ko-Fi, what I like about it is they don't take commissions from donations. Like, 100% of those profits go to you. I think if somebody makes an official commission using Ko-Fi, that's when they take, maybe 3%. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But, that's the reason what I like about Ko-Fi. There's also Buy Me a Coffee, but that is kind of rare. I've only really seen one person use that.
And I think there's also another thing called what is it called? Streamlabs or something like that, but that's for streaming, and some artists, I know some Western artists, right? They kind of do something similar to Streamlabs where it's not on Twitch. They stream on something else. They stream on some other website, right? That's kind of made for lewd drawings and porn, right? But imagine it's kind of a lewder version for Twitch, okay? But they stream themselves, drawing their next project or drawing their next commission, and people can tune into that. And then if you donate, you donate. If you don't, you don't. It's nice. It's just kind of like a nice thing to have. And I feel like I feel like Western art is more common with Western artists. Now with Japanese hentai artists, I think some of them, do that too, but I don't see them posting it as much on Twitter, because a lot of the Western artists always post on their Twitter, hey, I'm streaming lewd shit today, or I'm drawing lewd shit today. Tune in,
Yeah, but I feel like it's mostly other artists that like to view that type of stuff, because, maybe somebody that's really passionate about the process also. But from the comment sections that I see, it's mainly other artists that see that type of stuff. I guess up-and-coming artists that, want tips and tricks.
Yeah.
About how to draw better. I personally don't like to watch those streams. I just like when they do Twitter updates. Hey, this is my rough draft. Hey, this is, the sketch. And, hey, here's the finished product with color, with colors and everything.
I like to watch them. They're pretty nice. I like to watch streams. Maybe leave it on in the background.
I don't know. You already know kind of how I feel about streaming, so.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah, but other than that, we've been ranting about this for a while. Do you have anything else to talk about, or?
Not really. That's about it for me.
Oh well, I guess that's probably the episode of Doujin Drops. If anybody, we really encourage everybody to have this discussion on the comment section.
Yeah, just whoever it is, listening to it, right? But at the end of the day, everyone, we disclaimer: we don't truly support piracy like that, right? But at the end, but look,
try to find a way to
support your favorite artist, like, you know, through any means necessary, even if you have to jump through hurdles, if you're like that passionate about the artist, right? You know, and now, and the thing is, don't hate on the artist, right? All the time. Sometimes it's the industry's fault. Sometimes it's the consumer's fault. And then other times, you know, the taboo subject, sometimes it is the artist's fault, right? But we're not going to get into that can of beans right now. At the end of the day, support your artists. Try to avoid piracy, but at the end of the day, everyone's going to be Captain Jack Sparrow and, you know, and all that. You're going to be like at a pirate at sea at this point. But, you know, just try to do your best to, I guess, balance them at this point, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just wish there was a way Faku just... at this point, I'm willing to just advocate for Faku to monopolize the whole industry if it means but you can't everything in one place.
But you can't. You can't. In the U.S., they have that monopoly laws.
But I mean, yeah, that is true. But I mean, Apple has a monopoly on the smartphone industry. Google has it on the search engine industry.
Oh, well, not really.
There's legal ways to have a monopoly.
Well, yes, there's that.
Especially if you have a patent.
But yes, there's that. But at least, you know, Google is like combating Apple a little bit, you know, with Android.
Yeah, but I mean, I hate using this example, but it's kind of like with streaming. You know how everything was on Netflix, and now everyone has their own streaming stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna get too much into it, but you know, after a while, something that gets too big eventually gets split apart, and it just kind of sucks because, you know, you have a little bit of content here, a lot of content there, and
yeah. But
I'd rather just pay one. You know, I'd rather just pay one monthly subscription rather than 4 or 5.
But at the end of the day, everyone, you know, try to support your artist the best you can, even if there isn't really like that great of a platform to support them on, right? Because, you know, everyone's doing their best.
Yeah, and while I have like a split opinion on this, but it's always just better to support your artist, especially if you really like their work. But either way, I mean, that's pretty much it. We'd like to see the comments this time on the YouTube comment section. I guess I'm Jay.
And I'm T. And we're signing off.
We'll catch you on the next one.